welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I just make you jump, David. Well, here I am. How very on brand I am today as well. Look at this, I've got my Read More Books t-shirt on. It was a bookish prompt today for October outfits October. Why do I say October outfits? It doesn't even sound right. So I've gone for this lovely t-shirt. How smug was I earlier this month when I filmed the first part of my September Read In wrap up? I'd read 10 books by about the 12th or 13th. There's a group of lads playing outside. It's absolutely hammering it down here. And there's two lads who are out on their bikes in the rain, just literally having the time of their life, just riding up and down. It's drenched, they're both drenched, they've both got quite long hair and they're like flicking their hair around, just having a lovely time. So yeah, halfway through the month I filmed a reading wrap up with 10 books and I was like, oh, I'm off for a week now, so I'm probably going to read loads and loads of books and I better do a wrap up now. So I've already done part 1 of this month's reading wrap up where I wrap up 10 books. That I will link down below, that's already happened. But I was so smug and so certain that I would read at least 10 books again in the second half. I have read 4 books in the second half, so this will be a slightly shorter one. But yeah, go and check out that reading wrap up if you haven't done already, and this is the part 2 of my reading wrap up. The first book in the second half of the month was a book called Around the World in 80 Trains. Monisha Rajesh it is by. As I said, I read this on the Libby app, so on my e-reader. This was, I've been getting a little bit into travel, like, writing. I'm reading a travel book at the moment as well. This is a story about a woman and her partner who work their way around the world. That's one of my first problems, is that it's not around the world. Like travelling by train. There were aspects of this that I really, really enjoyed. I also find, like, it's really tough, isn't it, when you're like, when you're writing travel writing, she says, having never read any, written any travel writing, to sort of capture the essence of the country without it being sort of, I feel like tokenistic's a bit of a hardcore word, but without like making generalisations is what I mean. But I feel like this book did this quite well. Now obviously, like, it's by rail, the whole travelling is by rail, so there was aspects of it that weren't looked into. Mainly the books are about the train journeys. I've never been on an overnight journey on a train, but I really feel like I would like it. Some of the conditions that they travel in are not fun, and I really enjoyed her sort of like style of writing. She was like constantly coming back to me about like what food she's eating, how comfortable the beds were, like things that I would be interested in terms of like the general stuff of travelling around the world. But as I said earlier, it wasn't around the world. It was like majority of Europe and Asia, not majority of, but like top end of Asia and Europe, a little bit of North America, and that was it really. So yeah, it wasn't, there wasn't so much around the world as sort of like little bits, but I enjoyed it. And like I said, I found her writing very chipper, and I enjoyed like her turn of phrase, and it felt like having a chat with a friend about catching up about this trip she'd been on. So I enjoyed that. It wasn't what it said on the tin, and also I just feel like it would have been very helpful with a map, because I feel like that would have laid out the journey a bit more. But now thinking about it, and I've literally only just had this thought, maybe the reason that they didn't put a map in is because it wasn't around the world. So the book says Around the World in 80 Trains, and actually she only thought she was going to do 79 trains, and then a little sneaky train came in at the end and saved her. So yeah, there were just aspects of it that I didn't love, but I would definitely read more travel writing by this author. I thought it was really great. So yeah, so I finished that. Then I read one of my favourite books of the month, of the year, really loved it, and that was The Bass Rock by Evie Wilde. This is like proper right book, right time situation. Just loved it, thought it was absolutely brilliant, mesmerised by it. And what was even more of a deep joy was that this was our Patreon book club book. So not only did I really love it when I was reading it, but I got to like have a really deep intensio chat about it for an hour afterwards with a lot of other people who really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'll tell you what it's about. So it's 3 different timelines, all set in the same place in Scotland, which sort of looks out upon this rock, or an island off of Scotland called the Bass Rock. And it's 3 different timelines. One in the 1700s where you're following Sarah, who and that aspect is told from a boy's perspective about Sarah, who is a witch, and things that are going on then. Then there's Ruth's point of view, which is her negotiating a new marriage with a chap who already has 2 sons from his ex-wife who's died, and this is in post-war like Scotland. And then the most recent timeline is of Viv, who is travelling to Scotland to catalogue Ruth's belongings, and you find out about links between the families and things like that. There were so many links and stuff going on that I didn't really... this is one of those books, I cannot wait to listen to this on audio. Like next year. I never read the same book in the same sort of calendar year, so come January the 1st, I might even say, I'm going to start listening to the audiobook of it, because this is just phenomenal, magnificent, wonderful, really bleak, really gothic-y writing. There was aspects of this that really reminded me of like Rebecca and Daphne du Maurier's writing, which obviously I love, and you know I love. It just felt like a really, really special treat, and something that will stay with me for a really long time. And I've actually gone and got both of her books out on reserve from the library, just because I just loved her writing. I just thought it was absolutely fantastic, beautiful. Thought it was amazing. Really, really, really loved it, and would definitely recommend. So yeah, probably my favourite book of the year, which is giving away a lot, isn't it? Because I'd like to do my favourite books of the year, but like this was fantastic. Next up, audiobooks. So there's only 2 more to go. The next one was an audiobook, and that was a book that I have spoken about here on this channel before. It was a reread, a re-listen in fact, because I listened to it on Audible, and that is Wundersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow, by Jessica Townsend. The second in the Wundersmith series. The 3rd book in the Wundersmith series is out. It's October now, this month, the 15th I think it is, and the second book, without giving too much away because it is a series, you're following Morrigan Crow, who in the first book is you find out that she's a cursed child, cursed to die on her 10th birthday, and she's rescued by a chap called Jupiter North, who is her mentor and works alongside her to get her into a society called the Wondrous Society, where people have special knacks, and that's a special sort of skill or magic sort of element to their personality, and yeah, so at the end of the first book, spoiler alert, she gets into the Wondrous Society, and this is about her sort of negotiating her first year of the Wondrous Society. Now I enjoyed this much more, the more I listened to it. The first time I read it, and I was like, yeah, it was fine, but it wasn't as good as the first one. The second time I listened to it, and I actually think the audiobooks are delivered much better than my reading experience for me. They're narrated by someone called Gemma Whelan. She does a fantastic job, and I really would recommend the audiobooks of it. This was my 2nd or 3rd listen. I think it was my 2nd listen, and I loved it even more so this time. I think I gave it like 3 stars, maybe the first time or second time listening. First time listening to it, second time reading it. This time I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I really like the sort of like the establishing of friendships between her year at the Wondrous Society. They have some good sort of like characters, some twists that you don't expect coming, which I appreciate because it's a children's book as well. Sometimes you can see these things coming from a long while, but like really appreciated a lot of that. But one thing I will say, and I said this about the first book, was that Morrigan is really left in the dark by people that she loves and trusts as a child. Feel like they really mislead her and don't give her the full picture around herself. Now I know this is a sort of trope in children's books as a sort of like, oh, we're trying to protect her type thing, but for me, like, they really fuck her about in this. Like in the first one they do, but this one's even bloody worse, and she's really treated particularly badly by one teacher who basically like I would say like psychologically abuses her, and I had a problem with it the first time round, a problem with it the second time round, and the problem still remains the 3rd time round. But yeah, I think this is a really strong second book, and like I said, I've come to enjoy it the more and more I take it in. So yeah, really looking forward to the 3rd book. I wonder what it's going to hold. Hopefully more Christmassy stuff, because there wasn't much Christmas in the 2nd book. Jessica Townsend sounds like an absolute babe. It sounds like we've got a hell of a lot in common. She really loves Christmas, she really loves decorating for Halloween, she loves like food and snacks and just really fun stuff that I enjoy as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the third one. And then the last book, a book that I finished today on my lunch break, is Gender, Sex and Gossip in Ambridge, Women in the Archers by Cara Courage and Nicola Headlam. This is a book that I got for Christmas off of David's parents. I asked for it. The Archers is a radio soap that's been going on for, I feel like it might be 65 years, a long time. Oh, I can actually tell you because one of the first lines it tells you, I think it started in 1950 something. They got women writers in 1975. I remember that thing, but yeah, it started in, I'm sure it was 1950 something. Yeah, it's been going on for a long time, and it is set in a fictional village of Ambridge in the county of Borchester, where and it's all about farming life and people who live in the village, and there's lots of different storylines going on. It's taken me a good, I mean, I think I've been listening to it for about 4 or 5 years, and even now characters are turning up who I don't know and who everybody else in the soap seems to know about. So like, I'm still learning about it all the time, but my god, I really enjoy listening to it. I get really excited. I'm very like keen on characters in it and the storylines, and have a lovely time. And this book, which is all about women in the Archers, I heard about it, and David's dad also listens to The Archers. I'm going to give this to David's dad afterwards to see if he might want to read it. And yeah, I asked for it. Now when I got it, I was like, my god, that's much more academic than I actually thought it was going to be. It's a series of essays based on all sorts of different things. Like, there's a lot in here to do with gossip, there's a lot in here to do with women's jobs. I mean, the whole thing is about women in the Archers, and I had a really enjoyable time reading it. Now, I know this is a super niche book. It's not going to be for everyone, because if you don't enjoy The Archers, or you don't enjoy sort of like academic text on women, then this is not going to be for you. But if you enjoy either of those things, I really would recommend it, particularly if you enjoy The Archers. I actually did a studying vlog on this, where you saw me read this and study it, and I was making notes, highlighting stuff and making notes in another book, and it was just really fun and a really nice day to like remember what the aspects of studying that I really enjoyed. And I'm definitely going to look into the series. It's published by Emerald Publishing, and they do some other books in this sort of like to do with The Archers. I don't know if I'll be able to find it now. No, I don't think it is on the list, but there's something to do with cake was another one. But yeah, they do some other books to do with The Archers. And actually, off the back of this, I've now started listening to a podcast called Dumb Tea Dumb, which is sort of like talking a little bit more about what's going on in The Archers at the moment. But also, like, the episode I listened to this week was them talking about people that they really like on The Archers, but they wouldn't like to be friends with in real life. So it's just opened up sort of like more avenues of something that I really enjoy, and further aspects of being able to enjoy that. So yeah, thanks for David's mum and dad. And this was also included in a video that I made where it's 5 books that I think were going to be 5 stars, but I've been putting them off, and I've been putting off this because I wanted to have an opportunity to sort of study it and spend a lot of time with it, which I have done. I did give this 3 stars in the end. I think it'd probably be like 3.5. But yeah, I found some of the essays a bit short, and there was a bit of repetition. Also, one thing I will say about this book is that it is almost 200 pages long. But this just goes to show how often I don't read academic text. But so much of it was references. So I reckon if you took all the references out, this would actually probably be about 100 pages long, this book. So yeah, it was a bit sort of short and generalised in places, and some of the essays, like once you'd read the introduction, you didn't really need to read the rest of it because it had been summed up in there. So yeah, but we'll definitely look into more things like this because I had a lovely time with it. So 4 books in probably about 14 minutes. That's my second part of my wrap up for the month of September. What have you guys been reading in September? Would love to hear from you, and I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!